Hello, gorgeous humans, and welcome to the Tiny Talks podcast. This is the podcast where we take big thoughts and make them a tiny bit more manageable, one tiny talk at a time. I'm your host, Samantha Gerritsen, and today I'm here with Rose. I'm very excited. This is going to be a very cool episode. Do you want to start off by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about you?
Of course. Yeah, I'm Rose. I go to Nayland College, and I am one of the leaders of the Queer Pride group, Nayland Pride. And I'm also the deputy chair of the Nelson Youth Council, which is a really cool thing. I'm in a lot of different art spaces in the community, like music, performing arts, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So we're going to start with your highlight of the week.
Right.
So just something you liked over the past week or so.
Well, I would say my highlight of the week is my mom has been away on a trip to America, where I'm originally from, for 3 weeks, and she just got back today.
Oh, that's really nice. That's so cool.
Yeah, so it was really great to have her back. She had a lot of stories. And it was a lot of fun.
Of course, that sounds amazing. What was my highlight of the week? I think my highlight of the week is that I've been doing more arts and crafts, which has been pretty fun, because I finally have a break to do what I want to do.
It's so busy.
You know, it's been quite nice just being able to do stuff that I want to do for fun. So
yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. Our quote of the week this week is, "Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing that we will ever do." And that is by Brene Brown, which I think that's a very nice quote.
I agree.
And I think feeds into this week's episode very well. So, this week's episode sort of is similar to the one that we did with Marcus. We're going to be talking about acceptance, about loving who you are. We're going to talk about, probably go a bit more into the relationships and friends around you in this episode a bit more. And we're going to go from there and just see how that's helped you and stuff that you've noticed. So, we've got a bit about who you are. The first question we have is, what things have you struggled with in becoming and loving yourself that you've had to adapt and overcome?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's like we all go through this journey, you know, starts at a certain point in adolescence and then goes for an indeterminate amount of time. And one of the biggest things for me, why we chose this podcast episode, was not only loving who you are and being able to accept who you are, but also actually kind of figuring that out. Yeah. Just being able to really know things about yourself, specific things, general things. And so a lot of that for me has been, there are struggles that we all go through with that. And I think that that's a common theme for a lot of people who would be, listening to this podcast, young people. And for me, there have been a couple specific things. Firstly, I'm trans, male to female, if you couldn't tell. And one of the things for me with figuring out that I'm trans, being able to come out as trans, as well as a couple other facets of who I am, is thinking that if I decide that I can't be trans, right? If I decide that that's something that can be part of my personality, I had this weird misconception that if I was trans, then I couldn't be something else. Because for the longest time, I really wanted to be a musician, right?
Yeah.
Like, and still sort of do to an extent. It's something I'm really passionate about. But like, when I was younger, that was the thing I wanted to do. And I thought, like, if I was queer, if I was trans, if I was, all these other things, then I would have to be a queer musician. I would have to be a trans musician. I couldn't exist as an entity outside of that. I would have to make who I am and all my success be about that. And so part of that for me was kind of figuring out and realizing that didn't have to be. That, like, these aren't mutually exclusive, and part of that came from having role models, having really strong role models. I really looked up to this musician, Laura Jane Grace, who's part of this band Against Me, and I was really into punk music at the time. They're a punk band, and she's trans, and I just remember I had their album, Transgender Dysphoria Blues, just blasting on repeat for the few weeks before I decided to come out as trans and kind of accept myself in that way. And it was really helpful to me to have that, to be able to look at people and go, you're successful, you've reached all the goals that I've set for myself in life, and yet you're also trans, you're also queer. And another issue that I kind of came into contact with was thinking that the things that I wanted to achieve and the person that I wanted to be was also sort of mutually exclusive with other character traits that I had, right?
Yeah.
So I would look at role models and people who, for example, were successful in music, right? Laura Jane Grace is a very successful musician, and I would look at people like her and I would go, wow, this person is really, this person dresses a certain way, this person acts a certain very, very aloof, maybe not aloof, but kind of like devil-may-care. This person acts like stereotypically cool.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I was like,
I love that.
You know, I'm not like that. I'm kind of dorky. I really like D&D. I read fantasy books about magic, and I watch cartoons, and it's like, there's no way that I could ever combine these things to reach my goals in being the person that I want to be and also have these character traits. And it was about kind of realizing that, figuring that I had to know myself and know these things about myself, but that those things had to be different, and that like I couldn't be Rose and also be this person that I see myself in 10, 20 years doing these things that I really want to do, that I really care about. And part of that was changing my role models, not just to be these figures that you see really far off on big stages, out touring everywhere, and instead my role models being the people in my community who support me. And so those being people I met through Nayland Pride, people who I met through Q Youth, which, for those that don't know, is a service based in Nelson that does a bunch of really cool stuff for queer people. It was musicians who go to Nayland, really cool people, and seeing, these people are quirky and weird and themselves, but they're also good at what they do. They're achieving their goals. They're doing the things that they want to do. And it didn't necessarily have to be about music. It could be art. It could be math. It could be science. It could be all these different things. And these people who were really good at what they did, but they're also just themselves. They're unabashedly themselves. And
and that's something so amazing about Nayland. Like, it's so diverse, and that's what I love about it so much. There's so many people who are amazing at so many things.
Yeah, right.
And like, I love that. I think I talked about this with Xanthi, but our two main awards, we have our academic award, and we also have our all-rounders award, which is just for people who aren't necessarily academically strong, but are just amazing,
great people,
talented, incredible people. And, like, I love how accepting Nayland is, and it's so cool.
Yeah, and I think you can really see that in Nayland's Got Talent,
which
just happened. And
it was so good.
It was really good. Just so many people getting on stage just doing dumb stuff that was fun and funny, and it just showcased just such a large range of skills and acceptance. And I think part of what makes Nayland so great is what we saw in the crowd, which was that these people who just showed up and were just kind of idling and just watching what people that they didn't even know were doing, were so supportive and were so down to take part in shaking the MC's hand, doing all this wacky stuff. And it was just like, I think that's what makes Nayland so great, is that it's people are just willing to do whatever.
It's just so cool there. You were talking about role models a bit, which I thought was really interesting. And like social media is like one way that we find and we idolize ourselves to people, and we decide, I want to be like that person, how can I be like them, which is a really tough thing at the end of the day to try and navigate, and which is also why it's really important to take note of who you're following on social media. How similar are they to you? Are you following them because you like specific traits about them and it's just those traits you want to look up to, or like why are you following the people you do? If you can tell that these people, like if these influencers are negatively impacting your mental health, then consider doing a social media reset and sort of figuring out like who you actually want to be, and are the people that you're surrounding yourself in and following on these online platforms, are they benefiting who you want to be, which I think is a really cool thing to look for.
Yeah, like with that, like I found myself at a certain point being like, I had all these role models who were largely like these famous musicians, seen through social media or otherwise, and it was just like these people who all acted a certain way, who all dressed a certain way, who all, made this music that I thought was really genius and was really wonderful and really helped me at certain points in my life, but it was like, it really gave off that idea that like to have these specific traits, I also needed to have these other ones, which wasn't good.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have traits that you want to look up to, which I talked about in the episode I did by myself, and like finding, like people that, or characters or whatever that you like certain personality traits off, and use that as a, lever to push yourself to who you want to be, but not like basing everything you are and who you're going to be on this one person. Finding inspiration is great though, and if you're surrounding yourself with people you want to be like, then you're more likely to be like them. So which is a really cool idea. The next topic is, how have the people around you supported you? So friends, family, teachers, peers, that sort of thing.
I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit when talking about Nayland, but it's like I've had such an incredible support network, and starting specifically with my friends, the people around me who stick with me, I hang out with, they're just so wonderful. And I think if you're trying to be a friend to a person who's figuring out stuff about that, whether that be trans stuff, queer stuff, or just stuff, trying to figure out who they want to be, what things they want to be good at or try to do with their life, which I think is a universal thing that we all experience. And I think like my friends have always, they've just kind of listened, and whenever I have a success, they've celebrated it with me, and when I experience failure, and when I like we all do, we all fail, we all burn out, no one's perfect. They've been there, and they've supported me through both success and failure, and not being judgmental, and being and being able to provide not only distraction but also to help provide realizations, like why you failed, what you were really trying to do. Do you want to try and succeed next time, or is this something that it just isn't your thing, and to not only support you in that, but also not be intrusive. And because I think there's a fine line between helping someone figure things out and figuring it out for them, and you never want to lose yourself in what other people expect of you, even if there's the best of intentions at hand. With my parents and my family, they've just been wonderful. My parents are really accepting people, and we come from like California, LA, where there's a lot of diversity there. But even then, me coming out as trans, me doing all this stuff, it came as a little bit of a shock to them, which I think is natural. I mean, it's a very big thing, and I do a lot of things that are very big things that can be hard to understand, to wrap your head around. A lot of the stuff I do with like youth council and politics isn't the easiest to understand and support. But my parents, they've both been really, really awesome, and they've always helped me get to places and helped me, and just understood and trusted me, but also supported me when I needed to trust them. And that's also something that my brother has done.
Yes.
He's been one of my biggest supporters over the years.
That's so cool.
He's so awesome. We are like best friends.
I love
And he, because we just hang out all the time, or we did before he left for university, but we just hung out, and nothing really changed after I would reveal all this big information about myself that has so much stigma about it. He was just kind of a constant.
Yeah.
And he would be like, "Ha, I knew it." And then things would just keep on being the same.
Yeah.
So that was great. Teachers, we've talked about Nayland College a bit, but it's like, music teachers have really helped me lift to great heights. And
I gotta say, music teachers are
music
pretty
teachers
cool.
are awesome.
Bit biased. Music teachers are great.
Music teachers are great. I have this really great anecdote because right now I want to become a journalist, right? And that's more of a recent thing. That hasn't been something that I've been moving towards for like my entire high school experience, but it's something I've been looking towards for this year, end of last year.
That's really cool.
And one of the things that's moved me towards that is I've always done writing, right? And I write poetry, I write short stories and things like that. And I remember I had this one English teacher in year 11, and I submitted a piece of creative writing to him, and he was just so supportive. It was about like this like supercomputer that was like it was like a sci-fi.
That's so good.
It was like a sci-fi thing, but it's like he was so supportive. He was like, "Wow, this is really good.
Yeah.
You should totally like send this into like a competition or something."
That's so cool.
And I just remember getting that such a feeling of pride that it was like, somebody who does this as a job was like, they liked it so much and were so accepting that I was like, maybe this is something I can do. Maybe this is something that I'm passionate about, that I feel like I can take this skill with writing and I can go and make the world a better place with that, and I can make that part of who I want to be and discovering who I am.
Yeah. That's so cool. I absolutely love that. You talked about trust when you were talking about your brother and that sort of thing, and I think that's such an important thing, like having trust, like that the people around you are going to support you, and also that you are going to get, like, having trust in yourself that you're going to get where you need to be, and that you have the strength and the ability to achieve those goals, no matter how difficult they are, no matter how sucky it might take to get there. Having trust in yourself that you can get there, and the trust in the people around you that they will uplift you to get to the places that you want and need to get to, which is so cool. And having people who you trust and who trust you is really, really cool. The next question is, how has being true to yourself helped you?
Yeah, it kind of like we talked about before, the whole journalism thing. It's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I really trusted myself to be able to go pursue something completely different than what I'd been doing for a really long time, but it's like through knowing who I am and through going through the process of, having all these role models and introspection, and I found that a lot of that was like, I felt like I had to know myself to love myself, but part of knowing myself was loving myself enough to figure that out. And so it's this weird like thing, but like I think my advice to anybody going through that would be like baby steps, because it's like you can move these things forward a little bit, and you can try something new, and you can keep working at it, and eventually those baby steps turn into big boy steps. And then that gives way to each little baby step is a new fact you learn about yourself, or a new thing you love about yourself. And so through that, I find that, maybe I'm not gonna try and go to university for music, right? But it's still something that I think is a part of myself and that I know about myself and I love about myself. And so maybe I'm going to university for journalism to learn how to do this thing that I think can help a lot of people and that I'm passionate about and that, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But through knowing myself, I can still say, hey, I can still write music. I can still be in bands. I can still do all these other things that I'm passionate about, like coding and drama and writing more creatively and all these different things. And I know that even though it's not like I'm following the path to becoming all of those things, those are a part of me, and I can still make them be a part of me and have them be a part of me and let them be a part of me.
Yeah.
Even when it doesn't, so it's not like I'm abandoning them.
Yeah.
They're just there still.
I mean, one amazing thing about creativity in general is that it's so accessible.
Yeah.
Like, you can watch so many, artists and stuff, and you can be a part of that yourself, and, like, especially, like, the smaller New Zealand, community around music is really nice.
It is really cool.
You look at Tizzy, who just went and performed down at JB High Five the other day, and it was completely packed there, and it was like just those sort of things are really cool. Like it's like the small musician community in New Zealand, especially in Nelson, is very cool.
It is, and I personally have had a wonderful experience with that community because it's like I'm. For those that don't know, I'm part of a band called Lobotomy Stare. Look us up. And, like, I'm part of this band, and we do a little bit, some gigging around Nelson on occasion. But it's, like, one of my favorite things about it, possibly my favorite thing just about it in general, is just that we are part of this community. And it's not super big. It's pretty... it's pretty compact. There are a couple bands here, a couple bands there, but it's like we all know each other. We're all friends, and so whenever one band's performing, there's so many other members of the bands in the audience dancing, having a good time, taking inspiration. Like I played bass for Tizzy at one point. There's just like so many people that switch around musicians, just have a good time. It's such a nice community, and everyone's so supportive of each other that it just makes it such a great thing to be a part of.
That's so cool. I love that so much. We're moving on to the last segment of the podcast, which is all about moving forward. So, first question. What are you excited for in the near future?
Near future? Well, I mean, the near future holds exams for both of us.
Yeah, that is true. Did not think about that one.
I mean, I'm not necessarily excited for that in the near future.
Maybe not.
But I'll tell you, after exams, my brother comes home from university, which is awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that. And there's going to be a period of time in the summer, summer break, where I'm going to do a bunch of stuff with my band. We're going to
cool.
potentially collab with some other Nayland bands, which will be
fancy.
cool. Yeah. We're writing some new music, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And it'll also be just a great time to work on a lot of different projects that I've been working on. I've recently started trying to pick up learning how to draw again, so we'll see how I go with that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I've just been sketching some stuff, which will be...
I love that.
Yeah.
And the last question. We all have things and places we want to get to. How do you plan to navigate that and rise to be your best self?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've talked about that a lot throughout this podcast, but I mean, I'll just reiterate, I mean, it's the places I want to be are less about being in a job and more sort of having a state of being and a community, and for me, that's doing all these things that I'm passionate about and having the space to make that a part of who I am, even if it's not the part of who I am. And secondly, it's about being surrounded by people who support me like they do now, because I feel like I moved to Nelson in 2020, and so I felt like from basically the beginning of our college years to now, I've done a lot to build this community that I really care a lot about, and I understand that I have to leave a lot of that behind when I'm going to pursue different things, and I've made my peace with that, but I do want to at a certain point have this community. That's a big goal of mine. That's, you know, similar to the one I have now, that's super supportive, that I know so many people in, and I think part of that will be people that I know now, people that I meet in university, people that I meet through work and a job, and just to have that, because I never want to leave behind, because I think that's kind of the common misconception that I feel about growing up, and is that you have to leave behind all this kind of sense of fun, and sense of, like, being somebody who can just go out and, like, do something cool.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to, that's one of my big goals, is to have that community that supports just going out and doing something new and weird and fun, kind of like we talked about with Nayland College, that, you know, so many people are ready and accepting to just do weird stuff. And it's like that's a big goal of mine.
Yeah, that's super cool. And, like, you were talking about leaving things behind in community, and I think like, especially going into next year in leadership roles, we're going to have to, like, we're probably going to initiate a lot of things, and we're going to create a lot of things that we want to stay. But I feel although, like, creating a community where we are, we're going to be able to leave our, like, footprint in the sand. Is that a saying? Something like that.
Well,
whatever
that kind of implies
is.
that it's gonna wipe away.
It won't. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to say.
Footprint
but, like,
in the concrete.
Footprint in the concrete, and, like, we're going to be able to form a place where people are comfortable and happy and feel safe, which I think is a really cool thing about leading into next year, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah, one of my biggest goals for Nayland College specifically is to leave Nayland Pride a better place than I found it, which is a big goal because the leaders before me were, like, awesome.
Yeah.
They were really great, awesome people. But, you know, it's like I'm going forward and implementing all these different things and trying to work to make our school a more accepting place of queer people, and it's just, like, a really big goal of mine to leave that positive footprint. Yeah,
that's amazing. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Don't think so.
Really?
No, but had a great time on the podcast.
Yeah, it was epic. So we're gonna do our little outro now. Thank you for listening to Tiny Talks. Remember, you are kind, you are beautiful, you got this, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening.